What is in a name for Idaho's iconic Kibbie Dome? It's about recognition. Or at least it should be. The uncomfortable truth about the Kibbie Dome right now, as it stands, is that the name is a lie. You see, it is the students who have poured in millions upon millions of dollars over the years, not only to make sure the dome actually had a roof, but to make sure improvements were carried out. Meanwhile, a man who may or may not have fulfilled his own $300,000 pledge for that dome construction continues to get top billing on the Kibbie Dome name, despite the fact his lawyer was adamant he didn't even want his name on this facility in the first place. This peculiar conflict wasn't an issue for the first 40 some odd years of the dome's existence in its original name, the Kibbie-ASUI Activity Center for short, or long form, the Kibbie-Associated Students University of Idaho Activity Center. Then a Wall Street hardened president decided to do what Wall Street does best: brush aside the little guy in favor of money and then throw some empty token hollow gesture at the little guy's way, because what are they going to do anyway? Sadly, President C. Scott Green was once among those little guys, an alum of Idaho, Vandal. You would have thought he, of all people, would be championing the cause of students and wanting them to get the credit they deserved. Nah, what's a student besides a profit center? So he, alongside a thumb-twiddling excuse for an athletic director, decided it was time for a corporate sponsor on the Kibbie-Associated Students University of Idaho Activity Center. The problem here is that the corporation who wanted the naming rights to the dome also used initials in their name, not wanting it to be known as the P1FCU Kibbie-ASUI Activity Center lest someone not pay full tribute to the building's new corporate overlords. Green and the athletic director said, screw all of those students. What have they done for us lately? Lately, of course, being 2019 when both were hired. But hey, at least the students and alumni weren't going to be left empty-handed. Nope. They were going to build a statue of the school mascot, Joe Vandal, in our honor. How noble, how kind of them, because it's so much better to have a generic statue dedicated in your honor than having your name on a stadium or an arena. After all, P1FCU, they didn't even want their name on the Kibbie Dome, right? Oh, wait, never mind. The entire situation came to a head this weekend when that Joe Vandal statue was unveiled outside the Kibbie Dome. However, it was a letter from President Scott Green prior to this weekend's festivities that showed just how little he either cared or knew about the students' investment into the dome. I mean, he goes on and on about students this and students that, but refuses to acknowledge two very important facts. There is no mention of just how much of the students' money has gone into the dome over the years. I mean, he epically tries to beat around the bush here. I mean, it's like watching a Republican congressman try to justify treating people poorly while still somehow believing in a benevolent, merciful, all-loving Jesus Christ.
You like that? You like that?
So just how much have Idaho students given? Well, in the 1970s and 80s, we're talking about millions of dollars, and we're talking about millions of 1970s and 80s dollars, not this inflated 2025 dollar. We're talking about real dollars. Green also didn't mention William Kibbe, the man the dome is named after. His donation totaled $300,000, or a fraction of what students had put into the building over the years. That is, of course, if he actually made that donation at all. Oh, yes, the great Kibbie Dome mystery. The general consensus surrounding this is that he placed a $50,000 down payment and said he'd be good for the rest of his donation by 1976. No documentation has ever been made public that Kibbe actually came through with the remaining $250,000 of that pledge. And if the school ever received it, they just never bothered telling anyone. We do know that when the dome opened in 1975, Kibbe had not paid. Articles in the Idaho student newspaper, the Argonaut, and the nearby Lewiston Tribune had school officials go on record saying Kibbe hadn't paid just yet, but they were hopeful that he was going to come through with the cash. Kibbe's lawyer pinned both, writing 3 columns of what essentially amounted to, "How dare you?" And he went on to play the victim card as well, saying Kibbe didn't want this to be known as the Kibbie-ASUI Activity Center. The school actually forced Kibbe to put his name on the building. That brings us back to the present day. Green completely omitting Kibbe's donation, Kibbe's name to the roof, really says everything without saying anything. Regardless of if William Kibbe made or didn't make that donation back in the 1970s, it's sort of irrelevant. He didn't want his name on the dome after all. Students are the ones who attend the school and carry on its legacy upon graduation. They do care, and make no mistake, mistake. Idaho Stadium, or I guess new Idaho Stadium, what eventually becomes the Kibbie Dome, is not built without fees from students. And that is why this matters historically over the years. More often than not, when Idaho needed to get something done, when they needed something developed, it was on the backs of student fees. They foot the bill, oftentimes being railroaded into doing so. The thing is, Idaho doesn't have a T. Boone Pickens or even a collection of wealthier individuals. Idaho has Dauber from Coach, Deep Throat, and Jerry Kramer, among others.
You have the tools to win.
All extraordinary individuals, but not the types of folks who have huge sums of money lying around the house to throw at the University of Idaho. Students, though, they are ever present, and while the names and faces do change annually, they are there to put in fees. A not particularly good-looking and fairly generic statue of the school mascot isn't good enough to recognize their contributions over the decades. Let's not forget, Idaho was playing in a partially burned down stadium on the campus of Washington State University before student fees come through to build that new Idaho Stadium, and then more fees come through alongside Kibby's quote-unquote donation to make it a dome by 75. At this point, clinging on to that Kibby name is absolutely ridiculous. Kibby didn't want his name on the building in the first place. And even if he did come through in that donation of his, which seems highly dubious at this point, it still pales in comparison to what students were asked to foot. Is it like a branding thing? Are you afraid, oh, John Gruden's still going to call it the Kibbie Dome when we send him a bunch of free stuff for no apparent reason and move that like every school in America does at this point? Are you afraid the randos on Twitter, they're going to be all butthurt like, oh, how dare they change the Kibbie Dome name? It's historic, blah, blah, blah. Who effing cares? They didn't go to the school. It's not their money that has gone into the Kibbie Dome over the years. Is this a case of the credit union sponsor not wanting to have their initials mixed in with ASUI? Well, according to their own president and CEO, this deal has nothing to do with putting a name on a stadium. Do not take my word for it, though. This is what Chris Loseth had to say. The University of Idaho partnership and P1FCU Kibbie Dome naming sponsorship creates a great opportunity to further invest in young adults and empower them through a high-impact, high-value financial literacy education with support from our staff. A high-impact, high-value financial literacy education. Let me throw a hypothetical your way, Teach. What would you say if a group of individuals invested in a project and then have some new hire come in and take away that recognition for the investment without any consent? I mean, again, hypothetically, I'm guessing if President Green decided that he was going to remove the P1FCU name from the Kibbie Dome, well, Loseth probably wouldn't like it very much now, would he? Hey, the credit union can still have that Joe Vandal statue. I mean, of course, we know Green isn't going to do that. What he's going to keep doing is spewing all of these empty, hollow, meaningless words, sweet nothings to students so they don't get too upset with how absolutely preposterous these actions are. There's only one thing that really makes sense here, and that is restoring the student's name to the dome. ASUI, Associated Students, University of Idaho. You don't want to call it an activity center? Sure, whatever. You can call it a dome. That's sort of irrelevant here, and you can take Kibby's name off it completely because he didn't want to be involved. And as for P1FCU, well, if they want to be a part of it, so be it. They can be part of it with the ASUI, and if not, screw them. Who needs them? Where was P1FCU in the decades upon decades when Idaho actually needed funds for stuff? They couldn't be bothered to put up donations that were needed in the 70s, 80s, in the 2000s and 2010s when they were trying to make sure the dome was still fire safe, that the entire thing wouldn't go up in a cloud of smoke. Now they're tossing some dollars the school's way in 2023, and Green is more than happy to disrespect the students and everything they have given to that building over the years.
Stop me if I'm wrong. Stop me if I'm wrong.
President Green, ironic, isn't it? Green, cash, money, Skrilla, paper, dollar bill, y'all. You claim to be a proud alum, a proud Vandal, but if you really were, you wouldn't want your contributions to the Kibbie Dome being diminished. Nah, you're just another Wall Street prick tickler, another person out there in the world who says one thing and does another under the guise that, hey, I'm doing this for you, when the action says the exact opposite of that. C. Scott Green, this is the dude who reached out to an author after 2 years on the job to write a book about how great his leadership was. Hey, let's look at this timeline right right? The book is published at the end of 2023, but the author in question here says you began working on the project 2 years prior. So that puts you at late 2020 or maybe best case scenario, early 2021. You were on the job for 2-ish years, and that's being generous, and you were still out there wanting to write a book about how smart, how great, how wonderful of a job you were doing? Who was that for? You keep saying you're doing everything for the university, but that book is not for the university. You wanted to toot your own horn after 2 years on the job. That is some grade A bullshit. That would be like Idaho men's head basketball coach Alex Pribble, someone who's doing a very good job, by the way, someone who I'm happy is a Vandal right now, but that would be like him coming out and writing a book on how to turn around a basketball program despite having been doing so for what, maybe a season and a half now? Speaking of ridiculous, we need to go to the back cover of this book for more ridiculousness. Did you really have the University of Phoenix president write a recommendation for your publication? The president of the same freaking university you were literally trying to buy at this time. I wonder what they would say about the stupid book you were writing. This is gross. It's dishonest. It's utterly unprofessional. You know, a University of Idaho education is a wonderful thing if you know how to use it. Anyway, back to the Kibbie Dome issue. This is a very easy solution, Scotty boy. I don't even need to write a terrible book, and make no mistake, I read that book. It's freaking awful. It's the worst book I've read since Vivek Ranadive's book, but I don't need to write some god-awful book and then force some guy trying to curry favor with me to write a review so I could put that on the back of the book to solve the problem here. Put the students' name back on the dome. Make sure it is the Associated Students, University of Idaho Dome or Activity Center. I don't really care what you do. Take William Kibbe's name off it because he doesn't want to be there in the first place. And as I said, P1FCU wants to come along for the ride, they can, and if not, screw them. They're irrelevant to the story of the dome anyway. Have them fight over the Joe Vandal statue. It's our dome, however. It should be your dome too. You are a Vandal after all, but somewhere along the way, enriching big corporations in New York City.
This stuff made New York City!
New York City!
You lost an understanding of the little guys and girls. You lost an understanding of what it means to be a Vandal. Scott Green, Vandal no more. You're nothing but an empty-suited whore. And to all of the students and alumni, I want to say this clear. The Kibbie Dome, it's not the Kibbie Dome. It is your dome. It is the ASUI Dome. That's its rightful name, and don't let anyone else tell you otherwise, and don't trade your stake in that dome for anything, because it belongs to you, and your contributions to it deserve to be recognized. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. If you would like to know the full history of the Kibbie-ASUI Activity Center, check out the video in the upper left-hand corner of your screen. And for the story of how the Idaho football team ended up playing a game with the logo of the school right over their anus, check out the video in the lower left-hand corner of the screen. Until next time, I am Cheyenne Hollis. This is The Touchback, and as always, hashtag take it out, the 25.